Hello viewer, and welcome to Red Flag EU, the premier aerial warfare simulation environment for DCS World. This video is intended to familiarize you with terminal procedures for Nellis Air Force Base and some tactical procedures for Liberty Dawn. Topics to be covered include communication, contracts, deadman procedures, and a flying demonstration of terminal proc. The demonstration flight is fragged as a single F-15C callsign Razor 6-1. Because this exercise will be a new experience for many, we have to set some ground rules. First, check in with your new controller with your call sign only. The new controller will indicate when you can pass your message. This is to ensure messages aren't delayed by frequency newcomers. Second, on ground, make sure you have your clearance prior to moving. This saves radio time and stress in the air. Third, speeds outside of the NTTR will be limited to 350 indicated above 10,000 and 300 indicated below 10,000. Fourth, flights may not deviate from their brief procedure unless ATC clears them to do so. All aircraft will begin their communication with ATC through clearance delivery. Depending on which package you get, the IFR flight plan that you have on file and the clearance that you receive because of it may be different. Leaders should reference the published flight lead guide for further information. Upon contacting clearance delivery, be ready to copy your clearance. This will include your final altitude and any sort of route amendments that were made to your flight.
Razor 6-1 Nellis clearance, cleared into the Nellis test and training range via Dream 7 departure, Dream transition, then on mission. Initial climb to 8,000, expect flight level 19010 minutes after departure, departure frequency channel 5 squawk 5160.
Cleared into the range via the Dream 7, Dream transition, then on mission. 8,000, expect 190 after 10, departure channel 5, squawk 5160, Razor 6-1. Once you have your clearance, contact Nellis Ground. Expect a clearance limit of either Alpha EOR North or South EOR Pad.
Razor 6-1 Nellis Ground, South EOR, taxi via Foxtrot.
South EOR via Foxtrot, Razor 6-1. Upon holding, do not contact tower unless prompted. This is done for the case of traffic resequencing being necessary.
Razor 6-1, Nellis Ground, runway 3 left, taxi via Alpha, contact tower channel 4.
Over to tower on 4, Razor 6-1. If you are counted as dead by the red flag script, please proceed with the following forward deadman procedures. First, turn to the reciprocal of your fight axis, airspace permitting. Second, descend to the safe block, briefed at the beginning of the exercise. Third, squawk ident for easy identification from Blackjack. Fourth, contact Blackjack on 377.8 with a call sign suffix deadman. The following will be a live commentary over my demonstration of the Dream 7 departure. So, first waypoint getting off the ground of 3 right is Atolf, which is about 12.5 miles, pretty much runway heading. One thing to note, the F-15C uses true heading on its magnetic tape. For anyone using a full fidelity aircraft, you might notice 0 to 8 might be your heading. But in my case, I set this to 2025, where our current magnetic variation is about 11 degrees east. So that gives me about 039. Otherwise, it's pretty much just going to be the same flight for you. Nellis departure, Razor 6-1.
Razor 6-1, Nellis departure, radar contact, Vegas altimeter 2980, climb maintain, flight level 190.
2980 up to 190, Razor 6-1. The minimum climb gradient for this procedure at 300 knots is around 1500 feet per minute, which you should have no issue making. I'm holding 300 knots in my climb here, half because if I had a flight that would be a nice easy airspeed to rejoin, and also most times jets in the US operate under 10,000 feet, they operate at 300 knots or less, and above 10,000 feet that speed goes up to 350. And this looks like we're about 15 seconds out from hitting the point. Still holding 300 knots in the climb. I'm going to keep 300 as we're going to be approaching the top of this procedure at flight level 190, and fixing speed and altitude at the same time gets a little complex. So now that we're hitting 5 seconds out, we're going to go ahead and start anticipating the turn to the left. Now crossing at about a half mile, wanted to hit about 25 degrees of bank, and that should, for the most part, put us on to our next course up to Juneau. We've got about a minute 50, 20 miles to go here, and continuing that climb up. My eyeballs tell me that we're still within 1 mile of course, so we're not going to worry about that for the moment. We are approaching the top of this procedure, so we're going to go ahead and start our level off. Then we're going to fix our course, and then finally our speed. So we have drifted further, about 1.2 miles from course, so we're going to go ahead and start that correction maneuver here. Going to bring it about 15 degrees to the left, make sure that we can measure our drift and anticipate our turn back onto course. Course line coming in nicely. Passing 30 seconds out from Juneau now. Always a good idea to double check your instruments, make sure there's no failure, and also be sure to look outside every once in a while. Make sure you can gather as much information as possible on your current position, and that can be helpful in both instrument, visual, and even tactical navigation. Just a good habit to have. Course line almost centered now, so anticipating the turn back onto course, and we're also now crossing 15 seconds out, so expecting that turn to the left any minute now.
Razor 6-1. Contact Sally Control Channel 7.
Over to Sally on 7, Razor 6-1. Sally Control, Razor 6-1.
Razor 6-1, Sally Control, radar contact.
Now with Sally Control, the story really doesn't change too much. Still just a drive straight to Dream at flight level 190. They'll tell us if they need anything, and for now we should just expect a handoff to Blackjack on 377.8. Now it's a roughly 26 mile drive to Dream. I did get my heading wrong on this one, my conversion did not come out right, so you'll see some course corrections throughout the entirety of this leg, but doesn't end up changing our time too much. For me being a newbie to the 430, I consider this pretty acceptable.
Razor 6-1, squawk mission, contact Blackjack, channel 14.
Over to Blackjack on 14, Razor 6-1. Blackjack, Razor 6-1.
Razor 6-1, Blackjack, contact.
Now that we're under the control of Blackjack, we are able to request a deviation or a shortcut to our marshal, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to go ahead and complete the full procedure. And that's pretty much it. Crossing Dream, and I'm off to my marshal. Now let's examine Mormon MESA 8. While the routing for this route might be significantly different than Dream, there's not really too much that you're going to need to worry about.
Razor 6-1, Nellis departure, radar contact, Vegas altimeter 2980. Climb maintain, flight level 230.
2980 up to 230, Razor 6-1. You will spend a little bit longer on runway heading, in this case about 15 miles compared to 11.5 from Dream 7. But the significantly shorter and straighter route on the hand of Mormon MESA 8 makes it just as easy to fly as Dream. It also dumps you at flight level 230 compared to 190 in Dream, and also has a higher climb rate of around 1700 feet per minute at 300 knots. The only difference between Dream and Mormon MESA that I find to be significant is that Mormon MESA dumps you outside of the NTTR, which means you'll just have to do a range entry via Elgin, which isn't really that big of a deal. crossing Kuvax now. There's about a 35-mile drive straight to the Mormon MESA vortex. Some of you may have noticed that we haven't made a frequency change to Sally or Blackjack yet. That's because we haven't actually entered the NTTR just yet. Since we're skimming the southeastern edge, we're going to stay with Nellis approach and departure until we enter the Elgin range. And since this is a pretty straight shot to the Mormon MESA vortex, I'm just gonna go ahead and skip to 5 miles. Now that we're approaching Mormon MESA vortex, we should expect any sort of vectors into the NTTR and a frequency change over to Blackjack. And that's it.
Razor 6-1, squawk mission, contact Blackjack, channel 14.
The arrival that you fly will be conditional depending on if you die or not during your exercise. If you do die, you will probably get a vector to the east end of the container and then direct to fighter, but for most people they're going to be flying the full procedure from Flesh Fighter to Lucille and then back to Nellis. While Flesh is still inside of the test and training range, you can probably expect a handoff to Lee Control before then. There is a chance that Lee may not be staffed for the actual Liberty Dawn event, but communications between either Lee or Nellis Approach are going to be pretty much the exact same.
Razor 6-1, contact Lee Control, channel 8.
Over to Lee on 8, Razor 6-1. Lee Control, Razor 6-1, 17,000.
Razor 6-1, Lee Control, radar contact, Vegas altimeter 2980. Clear to Nellis Air Force Base via briefed arrival, descent and maintain 17,000, squawk 5460.
2980, 17,000, 5460, Razor 6-1. Since I can't edit the altimeter setting on my FC3 airplane, I'm just going to stay at 17,000 in my system. But for all the full fidelity aircraft, once you're below 180 is when you need to switch.
Razor 6-1, descend and maintain 13,000.
Down to 13,000, Razor 6-1. Now we're going to go ahead and begin that descent to 13,000. Keep in mind that 13,000 is pretty much the lowest altitude you can get to cross over the mountains west of Las Vegas, so we're going to be staying up here for a little while. On second thought, this is a pretty long leg, so let's go ahead and skip to 10 miles. Now that we're down at 13,000, you can really see the threat that those mountains west of Vegas present. If you remain at 13K, there's no hazard for hitting it, but if you get any lower, you're going to be in a pretty dangerous position. Now we're 30 seconds out from hitting Fighter. Once we cross over Fighter at 13,000, we're going to descend to Lucille. While it does have a floor of 10,300, I'm going to elect to stay at 11,000 to make my descent a little bit easier. This is another pretty long leg, so we'll go ahead and skip forward again. Now just over 1 minute out from Lucille. I got cleared down to 10,300 since I'm clear of the mountains now, but once again I'm going to stay at 11,000 for a better descent. "30 seconds, now anticipating that turn onto the final approach course. Looks like I was a bit too tight in the turn, but I'm correcting right nicely. A little trick that I noticed for the tack-in approach is if you keep your flight path marker at about 3 to 3.5 degrees down, you'll be able to fly the tack-in approach more or less like an ILS. It'll keep you stable pretty much the whole way down, and will keep you above, I think, all of the altitude floors for the high tack-in 3 right. The only one that it could possibly get in the way with is Husts if you keep it at 4 degrees down, but you'll notice by then. This video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to skip one more time for the check-in with tower.
Nellis Tower, Razor 6-1, initial 3 right.
Razor 6-1, Nellis Tower, roger, continue.
If you're wondering why the airspeed tape is blanked out, that's because I made a mistake with this. I flew this overhead at 350 knots, while Nellis procedure actually requires a 300 knot pattern. To make sure that anyone watching this video muted isn't getting incorrect information, I'm going to have a note on the description about this instead. While this isn't specifically stated in Nellis Proc, one thing that I noticed through my and others' observations is that aircraft only tend to configure at the perch. So my recommendation for this pattern is going to be to keep your gear up and maintain about 200 knots in the pattern, and once you hit the perch, right about now is when you configure.
Razor 6-1, perch, gear down, full stop.
Razor 6-1, runway 3 right, cleared to land.
Cleared to land 3 right, Razor 6-1.
And that concludes this presentation. For further inquiry on Nellis procedures, contact Generic, Sparrow, or Thetis in the Red Flag EU Discord for further information.